Millionaire invites his poor ex-girlfriend to his wedding to humiliate her, but what happens next shocks everyone. Daniel Kingsley, a man whose name echoes through both luxurious halls and newspaper headlines, a millionaire, charming, and, let's just say, a bit complicated. Now, imagine the surprise when he sends an invitation directly to Lily Thompson, his humble ex-girlfriend, the one he left behind years ago. Yes, folks, this story is about to get explosive. The letter arrived in an impeccable white envelope with the golden crest of the Kingsley family stamped in the upper left corner. Lily, she thought to herself, holding that piece of paper as if it were a bomb about to explode. Why is he doing this now? It was almost ironic, wasn't it? She could barely pay her monthly bills while he lived surrounded by yachts, imported cars, and exclusive events. But wait a minute, let's rewind to the beginning of this story because, after all, everything has a beginning, right? A few years ago, before becoming the magnate everyone knows today, Daniel was just an ambitious young man, full of dreams and without a penny to his name. That's when he met Lily, a simple girl, but with a heart so big it could embrace the entire world. The two were inseparable. They strolled hand in hand through the park, shared milkshakes at cheap diners, and laughed as if the future were too distant to worry about. "She's my better half," Daniel used to tell his friends. But, oh, how things change. When opportunities began to arise, he made a decision that would change everything. He left Lily behind, promising to return one day. But that day never came. He vanished, and Lily was left alone, trying to understand what had happened. Now, years later, there he was, inviting her to attend his wedding to Olivia, a woman as wealthy as she was controlling. Why should I go? Lily asked herself, staring at the ceiling while trying to organize her thoughts. He doesn't even know what I've been through or what he lost, but something inside her screamed, "Go." It wasn't curiosity. It wasn't anger. It was something deeper, something she couldn't quite explain yet. And so, after much hesitation, Lily decided to accept the invitation. But it wasn't by chance, nor out of nostalgia. She had a very strong reason, a secret kept hidden for years, something that could turn Daniel's world upside down. And you know what they say, right? Secrets have the power to destroy or transform lives. And in this case, it seems like it might be a little of both. While packing her bags, Lily felt a mix of nervousness and determination. "This might be my only chance," she murmured, zipping up her suitcase firmly. "I need to confront him. I need him to know the truth." But was she ready for the consequences? Was Daniel ready to hear what she had to say? The next step would be to travel to the mansion where the wedding would take place, a huge estate full of luxury and secrets hidden in its darkest corners. And there, amidst designer dresses and champagne glasses, something unexpected was about to happen, something no one could ever imagine. The day of the wedding arrived, and the Kingsley mansion looked like something out of a dream, or perhaps a nightmare. Enormous arrangements of white flowers decorated the hall, while sparkling lights reflected off every polished surface. Lily stepped out of the taxi with her heart pounding so hard it felt like it might leap out of her chest. "Breathe," she told herself, gripping the strap of her purse until her knuckles turned white. But how could she breathe when she was about to face the man who had changed her life forever? As soon as she entered the hall, all eyes turned to her. It was impossible not to notice the glaring difference between Lily and the other guests. While the women flaunted dazzling jewelry and designer dresses, Lily wore a simple, light blue dress she had bought on sale. "Who is that?" some guests whispered, curious and judgmental at the same time. She could feel their stares piercing her back, but she kept her head held high. After all, she wasn't there to impress anyone. And then it happened. Daniel appeared at the entrance of the hall, impeccable in his black suit, looking even more intimidating than Lily remembered. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and it was as if time stood still. He hesitated, blinked, and then began walking toward her. "Lily," he said, with a mix of surprise and something deeper. "Guilt, perhaps? I didn't know if you'd come." "You invited me, so I came," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady, but feeling the weight of all the unspoken words hanging in the air. "But don't think this means we're okay." Daniel swallowed hard, clearly uncomfortable. He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could say anything, Olivia appeared by his side, radiant in a scarlet-red dress. "Ah, so this is the famous Lily," Olivia said, with a smile that was more of a weapon than a friendly expression. Olivia had a magnetic presence, but also something sharp, like broken glass wrapped in silk. She extended her hand to Lily, who shook it cautiously. "So, you're Daniel's ex-girlfriend." Her voice was soft, but there was a sharp tone hidden between the lines. "How interesting." Lily forced a polite smile, but her eyes told a different story. She could feel Olivia sizing her up, trying to figure out what made her special. Meanwhile, Daniel seemed torn between the two women. He shot nervous glances at Lily, as if he wanted to explain something but couldn't find the right words. "Olivia, can I speak with Lily for a moment?" he asked hesitantly. Olivia raised a perfectly arched eyebrow. "Of course, darling," she replied, but there was a calculating gleam in her eyes. "Just don't take too long. We have guests waiting." Lily followed Daniel to a quieter corner of the hall where they could talk without being overheard. "Why are you here, Lily?" he asked, his voice low but charged with emotion. "You know this doesn't change anything, right?" She stared at him, feeling a mix of anger and sadness bubbling inside her. "Do you really think I came here for you?" she shot back, her voice trembling slightly. "You have no idea what the real reason is, Daniel." Before he could respond, the sound of high heels echoed through the hall. It was Olivia again, this time accompanied by a man who looked like a lawyer or financial consultant. "Daniel, we need to discuss some details," she said, completely ignoring Lily's presence. And just like that, the moment was interrupted, leaving more questions than answers in the air. What was Olivia plotting? And would Daniel finally have the courage to confront the past he had been trying so hard to avoid? The hall was filled with laughter and lively conversations, but for Lily, the world seemed to have shrunk to a deafening silence. She watched Daniel from afar as he tried to balance his attention between the guests and Olivia, who seemed increasingly controlling. This woman isn't just rich, Lily thought with a pang of irritation. She's like a spider web, ensnaring everything around her. But there was something bigger at stake here, something she needed to reveal before it was too late. The opportunity arose when Daniel stepped away for a few minutes, pretending to look for something in the mansion's office. Lily followed him discreetly, her footsteps echoing down the empty hallway. When they were finally alone, she closed the door behind her and faced Daniel with a determination he had never seen before. "We need to talk," she said, her voice firm, though her hands trembled slightly. "And this time, you're going to listen to me." Daniel frowned, confused. "Lily, what's going on? Why are you really here?" She took a deep breath, as if gathering all the courage in the world. "I'm here because you need to know the truth," she replied, looking directly into his eyes. "You have a son, Daniel, a 5-year-old boy named Ethan." The words came out like thunder, echoing off the walls of the small office. For a moment, Daniel was completely paralyzed. His eyes widened, and he stammered something unintelligible, as if Lily's words had shattered all the barriers he'd built over the years. What? How? He tried to form a coherent sentence, but his mind seemed to be spinning out of control. Why didn't you ever tell me? He asked, his voice now heavy with emotion. Why should I have? Lily shot back, a mix of anger and hurt in her voice. You just disappeared, Daniel. You left me alone, pregnant, and without any explanation. Did you think I should have chased after you, begged for your attention? She felt tears begin to stream down her face, but she didn't care. I raised Ethan alone, worked twice as hard, faced every difficulty without you. And now you want to know why? Before Daniel could respond, the office door burst open abruptly. It was Olivia, with her calculated smile and a dangerous glint in her eyes. So here you two are, she said, with a false sweetness that sent chills down Lily's spine. I hope you're not conspiring against me. Are you? She entered the room, closing the door behind her, and gave Lily a penetrating look. What's going on here? Lily hesitated for a moment, but decided it was time for someone to confront Olivia. We were talking about Ethan, she said, with a calmness that surprised even herself. Daniel's son. Olivia blinked, clearly surprised, but quickly regained her composure. Interesting, she murmured, crossing her arms. But that doesn't change anything, does it, Daniel? Her tone was sharp, as if reminding him of something important, something he couldn't ignore. Daniel looked torn, caught between two women who represented completely different worlds. He looked at Lily, then at Olivia, and finally lowered his head, defeated. I need to think, he said, his voice almost a whisper. But Lily knew this wasn't the end. No, this revelation was only the beginning of something much bigger, something that would change all of their lives forever. The ceremony was about to begin, and the main hall of the Kingsley mansion looked like a scene straight out of a fairy tale. Rows of golden chairs were arranged in perfect symmetry, with giant floral arrangements exuding an almost oppressive fragrance. But behind this facade of luxury and elegance, hidden tensions lingered, like invisible cracks in an otherwise flawless wall. Lily sat in the second row, trying to remain inconspicuous, but it was impossible to ignore the curious glances from the guests. What is she doing here? They seemed to silently ask, whispering among themselves. Daniel, on the other hand, stood at the altar next to Olivia, who looked radiant in her gleaming white dress, but his eyes were distant, as if his mind were elsewhere, or rather, on someone else. He stole quick glances at Lily, trying to process everything she had revealed in the office. Ethan, he repeated mentally, as if the name of his son were a heavy anchor pulling him down. How could he not have known? How could he have let this happen? When the officiant began to speak, the atmosphere grew even tenser. The words sounded hollow to Daniel, who could barely focus. Olivia, however, was completely focused, gripping her bouquet so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She knew something was wrong, and it deeply unsettled her. I won't let anything ruin this moment, she thought with an almost frightening determination. It was then that it happened. In the middle of the ceremony, when the officiant asked if anyone objected to the marriage, Olivia spoke up before an awkward silence could settle in. Actually, she said, with a sharp smile, I'd like to share something with all of you. The guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats, sensing that something big was about to unfold. Lily Thompson, Olivia continued, pointing directly at her, has tried to sabotage this wedding since the moment she arrived here. The entire hall fell silent, all eyes turning to Lily. She felt the weight of every pair of eyes on her, like arrows ready to strike. But surprisingly, she didn't back down. Instead, she slowly rose to her feet with a calmness that defied the situation. "Sabotage?" she repeated with a faint ironic smile. "Do you really think I came here for that? Olivia?" She paused dramatically, looking directly at the bride. "I came here because Daniel needs to know the truth. He's the father of a boy named Ethan." A murmur rippled through the hall like agitated waves in a tranquil sea. Some guests widened their eyes. Others began frantically whispering among themselves. Daniel, at the altar, seemed to be in shock, unable to process Lily's words in front of so many people. Olivia, on the other hand, was furious. Her flushed face and clenched fists showed that she hadn't expected Lily to be so direct. "This is ridiculous," Olivia shouted, trying to regain control of the situation. "How can we trust you?" "Trust?" Lily shot back, her voice now firm and loud enough to echo through the hall. "You want to talk about trust? Then let me tell you something that maybe no one here knows." She took a deep breath, preparing for the final blow. "Daniel is on the verge of bankruptcy, and you, Olivia, are the one responsible for it." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the guests seemed to hold their breath, stunned by the revelation. Olivia turned pale, as if struck by lightning. "That's a lie," she screamed, but her voice trembled, betrayed by uncertainty. Daniel, on the other hand, finally seemed to understand what was happening. He looked at Olivia, then at Lily, and realized his life was about to change forever. And as chaos erupted in the hall, one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. The hall was in an uproar, but for Daniel, the world seemed to have stopped. He could barely hear the murmurs of the guests or Olivia's indignant shouts. His mind was caught in a whirlwind of emotions, shock, guilt, and a growing anger that he didn't know how to control. "Bankruptcy," he repeated, looking at Olivia with an expression that mixed disbelief and betrayal. "What is she talking about?" Lily, still standing amidst the chaos, maintained her composure, though her heart was racing. She knew she had dropped a bombshell on the wedding, but there was no other way. "Did you really think I was bluffing?" she asked, staring directly at Olivia. "I have proof," she continued, pulling some folded documents from the inner pocket of her purse. "Your signature is on each of these fraudulent contracts. You drained Daniel's company accounts while pretending to be the perfect savior." The guests began to stir even more, some rising from their seats to get a better look at the papers Lily held. Olivia, visibly shaken, tried to maintain her composure, but it was clear her hands were trembling as she stepped toward Lily. "This is absurd," Olivia exclaimed, her voice shrill. "These documents are fake. She's lying to all of you," but no one seemed convinced. The calculating gleam that once dominated her eyes was now dull, replaced by something close to panic. Daniel, on the other hand, was in a state of pure confusion. He took the documents from Lily's hands, flipping through them quickly. Each line, each number, seemed to confirm what she had said. "How did this happen?" he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. "How did I not see it?" He felt a lump tighten in his throat as he finally understood the extent of the damage. "Everything I built, everything—" "You were blind," Lily interrupted, a hint of compassion in her voice, though it still carried resentment. "She manipulated you. From the start, Daniel. She used your money, your name, your life to build her empire. And you didn't even notice." The words were harsh, but necessary. Daniel lowered his head, feeling the weight of his past choices pressing down on his shoulders like an insurmountable mountain. Meanwhile, Olivia was desperately trying to regain control of the situation. "This is ridiculous," she shouted again, this time addressing the guests. "You know the truth about me. I'm a successful businesswoman, not a criminal." But her words sounded hollow, almost pathetic, in the face of the evidence presented. Some guests were already quietly leaving the hall, clearly uncomfortable with how the events were unfolding. Daniel, finally emerging from his stupor, turned to Olivia with an expression she had never seen before, a mix of pain and determination. "You used me," he said, his voice low but charged with intensity. "You made me believe I needed you, that I couldn't survive without your help. But now I see that you're the reason for all of this." He waved the documents in the air, as if they were the ultimate proof of her betrayal. Olivia took a step back, her eyes wide with fear. "You can't be serious," she murmured, her voice almost a whisper. "We're a team, Daniel. We always have been." But her words fell into the void. Daniel wasn't listening anymore. He was too busy processing everything that had happened, the lies, the manipulations, the wrong choices that had led him here. And for the first time in years, he began to see a way out. As the chaos continued in the hall, Lily watched everything from a distance, feeling a mix of relief and concern. She knew this was only the beginning. Daniel still had a long way to go, and Ethan, her son, deserved a present father, not someone lost in his own mistakes. But was Daniel ready to face this new reality, or would the weight of everything that had happened be too much for him to bear? The hall was nearly empty now, with only a few overly curious guests remaining. But the atmosphere had completely shifted. What had once been a luxurious celebration had transformed into an impromptu courtroom, where secrets were laid bare and truths cut like sharp knives. Olivia, who had always seemed so confident and unshakable, was cornered, and everyone could see it. Lily decided to dig deeper. "Do you really think I came here unprepared?" she asked, her voice echoing through the now silent space. She unfolded the documents again, pointing to specific details. "Olivia didn't just drain Daniel's company accounts," Lily continued with a chilling calmness. "She's also involved in illegal schemes that go far beyond that." She paused dramatically, letting the words hang in the air like thick smoke. "She's done this before to other people. Daniel wasn't her first victim." Olivia's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, she looked ready to strike back. But then, something strange happened. A slight tremor ran through her body, and she lowered her head, defeated. It was as if the full weight of her actions had finally crashed down on her shoulders. "You don't understand," she murmured, almost inaudibly. "I did what I had to do." "Had to?" Daniel interrupted, incredulous. "You stole my life, Olivia, my company, my future, everything." He stepped toward her, holding the papers as if they were weapons. "How could you be so cruel?" Olivia raised her eyes, and for the first time since he'd known her, Daniel saw vulnerability in her. It wasn't remorse, but something close, perhaps fear of what was to come. And then, as if being sucked into a whirlpool, Olivia began to tell her story. "I grew up with nothing," she said, her voice trembling. "My family was poor, and I promised myself I would never go hungry or have to depend on anyone again. Yes, I made bad choices, but I just wanted to survive." She looked around, as if seeking understanding from the faces of the few who still remained. "I'm not asking for forgiveness, but you need to understand that I'm not the monster you're making me out to be." Daniel felt a pang of something he didn't expect. Empathy. It didn't justify what Olivia had done, but he finally saw the bigger picture. She was a woman driven by ambition and fear, someone who had sacrificed her morality in pursuit of security. "That doesn't change what you did to me," he said firmly. but I understand that you have your own scars too." Lily, however, was not willing to be lenient. "Understanding doesn't mean absolving," she retorted, her expression serious. "You used people, Olivia. You lied, manipulated, and destroyed lives. And now it's time to pay for it." She pulled her phone from her pocket and showed Daniel some messages she had received from investigative journalists. "These documents are going to the right hands. You won't escape this time." Olivia turned even paler, realizing there was no way out. "You don't know what you're doing," she whispered, almost pleadingly. "If those documents get released, I'm finished." Lily held her gaze, unwavering. "Exactly," she replied, with a coldness that surprised even herself. "That's exactly what you deserve." As Olivia walked away, defeated, Daniel felt something inside him begin to shift. He wasn't sure what the future held, but one thing was certain. He couldn't keep living the way he had been. There was a son waiting for him, Ethan, and a woman he had deeply hurt, Lily. Maybe it was time to rebuild, not just his fortune, but his life. And for the first time in years, he felt a glimmer of hope. The next day dawned gray, with heavy clouds hanging over the Kingsley mansion like a perfect metaphor for the mood that dominated the hearts within. Daniel had spent the night awake, sitting on the mansion's veranda, staring at the horizon as he tried to organize his thoughts. How could I have been so blind? He asked himself for the 1,000th time. The revelations about Olivia still echoed in his mind, but something deeper, and perhaps more painful, was beginning to surface. The awareness of everything he had lost over the years. Lily, on the other hand, was busy helping Ethan get ready for a new day. The boy, with his tousled hair and easy smile, seemed oblivious to the emotional storm swirling around his mother. "Mom, when are we going back home?" he asked, distractedly drawing in a notebook. Lily hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to say. "Soon, my love," she replied, stroking his hair. "But first we need to resolve some things here." She knew Ethan deserved to meet his father, but she also knew she couldn't simply hand Daniel over on a silver platter after everything that had happened. When Daniel finally found Lily in the mansion's kitchen, he seemed different, more vulnerable, more human. "We need to talk," he said, with a sincerity she hadn't seen since the old days. Lily sighed, placing a cup of coffee on the table. "About what?" she asked, trying to maintain her composure, though her heart was racing. "You've done your part, Daniel. You exposed Olivia, saved your company. What more do you want?" "I want to fix things," he replied with an urgency that surprised even himself. "Not just with you, but with Ethan too. I was an idiot, Lily. I abandoned both of you. Let my ambition blind me." He paused, searching for the right words. "I know I can't change the past, but I want to be a father to him. I want to be present." Lily stared at him for a long moment, assessing his intentions. Was he being sincere? Or was this just another fleeting phase of regrets? "Ethan isn't a project, Daniel," she finally said, with a firmness that made it clear she wouldn't accept anything less than his full commitment. "He's a child with real feelings and needs. You can't just show up and expect everything to magically resolve itself." Daniel nodded, fully understanding the weight of her words. "I know that," he replied, humbly, "and I don't expect it to be easy, but I promise I'll try every day to be the father he deserves." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of hurried footsteps in the hallway. It was Ethan, who had escaped from his room and was now running toward the kitchen, clutching his sketchbook. "Look what I did," he exclaimed proudly, showing off a drawing of a family, a tall figure, a shorter one, and a child in the middle. Daniel felt a lump in his throat as he realized that was him, Or at least how Ethan imagined him to be. "That's incredible," he murmured, his voice choked with emotion. "You're very talented." Ethan beamed, radiant, and handed the drawing to Daniel. It was a small moment, almost imperceptible, but loaded with meaning. For Lily, it was like watching a bridge being built, slowly and precariously, but with the potential to last. Maybe this is a start, she thought as she watched the two of them interact. Maybe he really is ready to change. Meanwhile, Daniel began to understand that rebuilding his life wasn't just about recovering his fortune or clearing his name. It was about reconnecting with the people who truly mattered. Ethan, Lily, and even himself. He knew there was a long road ahead, full of challenges and tests of character. But for the first time in years, he felt he had something worth fighting for. Together, Lily and Daniel began to outline a plan to face the consequences of Olivia's actions and ensure that Ethan had the future he deserved. They knew it wouldn't be easy. After all, the past always leaves its marks, but they also knew that, together, they could face anything. And as they worked side by side, something unexpected began to blossom between them. A new connection based on respect, understanding, and perhaps a second chance. The following days were a whirlwind of tension and adrenaline. Lily and Daniel's interview had caused a colossal impact, but Olivia wasn't the type of person to accept defeat without fighting back. She was in her apartment, surrounded by scattered papers and glowing computer screens, like a spider, weaving her final web. "They think they can destroy me so easily," she muttered to herself, her lips curling into a dark smile. "Let's see who has the last laugh." Meanwhile, Lily and Daniel were trying to rebuild their lives. He had started to regain control of his company, though he still faced significant financial challenges. Ethan, now closer to his father, seemed to flourish with the new family dynamic. But despite the progress, both felt that something lingered in the air, an uncomfortable sense that Olivia still had some tricks up her sleeve. "We need to stay vigilant," Lily said one morning, reading an online article about Olivia's legal maneuvers to avoid imprisonment. "She won't give up that easily." And then, like a bolt of lightning in an otherwise clear sky, it happened. An anonymous tip reached the authorities, accusing Lily of forging documents to harm Olivia. It was a low blow but effective, and, of course, completely false. "This is ridiculous," Daniel exclaimed, furious after reading the news. "How can she make up something like this?" Lily, however, remained calm, though her eyes shone with determination. "She's trying to destabilize us," Lily replied firmly. "But we have something she'll never have: the truth." Determined to fight back, Lily and Daniel decided to publicly expose all the evidence they had gathered so far. They called a surprise press conference, inviting renowned journalists and activists who fought against corporate fraud. On the day of the event, the hall was packed with cameras and microphones ready to capture every word. When Lily stepped onto the stage, holding a folder full of documents, the silence was absolute. "Today," she began, her firm voice echoing through the room, "we are going to show you who Olivia Kingsley really is." And with that, she revealed everything, from the illegal schemes to the personal manipulations. The reaction was immediate. Social media exploded with hashtags like #JusticeForLily and #OliviaFraud. Investigative journalists dove into the evidence, confirming its authenticity. Within hours, Olivia saw her name dragged through the mud in an irreversible way. But the final blow came when the police knocked on her apartment door, warrant in hand. "Olivia Kingsley, you are under arrest for fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy," the officer announced as handcuffs were placed on her wrists. She tried to protest, but her words sounded hollow even to her own ears. With Olivia behind bars, it finally seemed like peace was on the horizon. Daniel managed to recover part of his fortune thanks to a court settlement that returned the embezzled funds to the company. He also decided to change his approach to business, prioritizing transparency and ethics. "Enough chasing power," he said one night, watching Ethan play in the garden. "I want to build something that truly matters." Lily smiled, feeling genuine pride in the man he was becoming. However, despite all the victories, Lily knew there was still a long road ahead. She and Daniel had much work to do to repair the damage from the past, both in their lives and in their relationship. "It won't be easy," she said one night as they talked under the stars. "But I believe we can get through it. Together." Daniel nodded, holding her hand affectionately. "I believe it too," he replied with a sincere smile. "And this time, I'm not going anywhere." While the future still held uncertainties, one thing was certain: Lily, Daniel, and Ethan were ready to face it together. And for the first time in years, there was hope in the air, a promise of new beginnings and endless possibilities. The following months brought profound changes for Lily, Daniel, and Ethan. Olivia's imprisonment made headlines for weeks, but over time, the news about her faded, overshadowed by other scandals, as always happens in the world of celebrities and business. For Daniel, however, this wasn't just another closed chapter. It was an opportunity to redefine who he was and what he wanted from his life. "I spent years chasing things that didn't matter," he said one morning as he drank coffee with Lily in the mansion's kitchen. "Now, I just want to build something real." Lily smiled, feeling the weight of what he was saying. She, too, had undergone a personal transformation. After exposing Olivia's schemes, she received several offers to tell her story in books and documentaries, but she turned them all down. "That's not my life," she told Daniel when he asked about it. "I don't want to live under the spotlight. I'd rather make a difference in another way." And so, she began working as a social activist, helping vulnerable families and promoting educational programs for underprivileged children. It was a humble path, but one filled with purpose. Ethan, on the other hand, was thriving, with Daniel finally present in his life. The boy seemed more confident and happier than ever. He loved spending weekends with his father, exploring the mansion's garden or helping him with small projects at the company. "Are you going to be like Dad when you grow up?" Daniel once joked as Ethan drew in his notebook. The boy looked at him with mock seriousness and replied, "No, I'm going to be better." They both laughed, but there was an implicit truth in those words. Ethan was determined to create his own legacy. Despite all the progress, Lily still maintained a certain emotional distance from Daniel. She knew he was changing, but she couldn't simply erase the years of pain and abandonment. "I forgive you," she said one night as they walked through the garden bathed in the soft glow of the moonlight. "But that doesn't mean we can go back to what we were before." Daniel nodded, fully understanding. "I don't expect you to trust me right away," he replied sincerely. "I just want to be here for you and for Ethan, one step at a time." Daniel's professional life was also changing. He decided to overhaul his company, adopting more ethical practices and investing in social projects. "I want my son to be proud of me," he explained to Lily during a candid conversation. "And I want people to see that it's possible to do business fairly." He even started collaborating with Lily on some of her social projects, offering resources and logistical support. It was an unexpected partnership, but one that brought incredible results for the communities they helped. One day, while organizing documents in her office, Lily received an unexpected letter. It was an international job offer, a unique opportunity to lead a major humanitarian project in another country. She was torn. On one hand, it was the kind of work she had always dreamed of doing. On the other, it meant leaving everything behind, including Daniel and Ethan. "I need to think," she said to herself, holding the letter in trembling hands. Daniel noticed her hesitation, and though it pained him to think of her leaving, he knew he couldn't stand in her way. "You deserve this," he said one night as they talked about the future. "If this is your chance to fulfill your dreams, I won't stand in your way." Lily looked at him, surprised by his understanding. "But what about Ethan?" she asked, concerned. "He already has you," Daniel replied with a sad smile. "And I promise he'll understand." It was a moment of clarity for both of them, a recognition that sometimes love means letting go. In the end, Lily accepted the offer. Before leaving, she and Daniel had a long conversation with Ethan, explaining that even from afar, their love for him would never change. "You'll always be my hero," Ethan told Daniel, hugging him tightly. For Lily, that moment was a powerful reminder that, despite all the mistakes and challenges, they had created something beautiful together. A family that, though imperfect, was genuine. And so, as Lily embarked on her new journey, Daniel stayed behind, reflecting on the cost of love and the choices he had made. He knew the future would be full of uncertainties, but he also knew that, for the first time, he was ready to face them with honesty and courage. And as he watched Ethan play in the garden, he realized that sometimes the greatest gift life can give is a second chance.